Good day everyone. I am Jaina Yama, BA Ed third year student, and for today's video I am going to discussing to you about a completion type of test up to non-restricted or extended essay. So now let us proceed to our discussion on completion or fill in the blank test items. Please take note that this kind of test would allow teacher to evaluate or to check for mastery of student when it comes to factual information or conceptual learning. Specifically, when specific words or phrase is important for student to understand, important for learners to master or to memorize. Yun po ang pinakagamit ng completion type of test or fill in the blank test items. Now, these are the different suggestions in writing completion test item. The do's and don'ts of writing completion test items. The first one is only have to omit significant words or core concept or big ideas from the statement. Yun lang po ang tatanggalin natin. Only significant word, only core concept, only important ideas or big ideas should be removed from the statement, and that's as to be supplied by the examining. Example, undesirable. Every atom has a central blank called nucleus. The item being omitted, or in this example, is not the important concept. Hence, to make it desirable, we say every atom has a central core called a nucleus. The nucleus is significant word or significant concept in the said statement. Second, do not omit so many words from the statement that the intended meaning is lost. Okay, do not consider a word to be blank from the statement if it would lose intended meaning of the statement. For example, this is undesirable because ang dami niyang tinanggal sa statement na ito. Example, the blank were to Egypt as the blank were to Persia and as a blank were to the early tribes of Israel. So, anong ibig mong sabihin? Okay, what is the meaning or what are the analogy would you like to tell the students with this undesirable example of completion test item? So better we say, the pharaohs were to Egypt as the blank were to Persia and as blank were to the early tribe of Israel. So do not omit the other one para magkaroon ng logical thinking ang mga examinees kung ano ang susupply nila. Kasi kung tatanggalin mo lahat, wala ka nang makitang comparison. Remember that is an analogy statement. So wala silang point of preference of what concept should they put to compare with the other concept being served as a blank or being omitted from statement. Again, in unfinished statement, in logical or nature, we have to be careful with the words that we are to omit so that student being still clear as regard their point of preference of what type of significant should they supply with that statement. Third, avoid obvious clue to the correct response. Do not put obvious clue to the unfinished statement. For example, most of the United States libraries are organized according to the blank decimal system. Better to ask which organizational system is used by most of the United States libraries blank. So, better convert unfinished sentence into the anyway, what we call of this test item? We call of this test item is short answer items because they have specific answer to the question. Number 4, be sure there is only one correct response in the statement. Nang sa ganun, you have avoided the challenge of providing scores to the said item. For example, trees which shed their leaves annually are blank. In this undesirable example, maraming klaseng trees ang kailangan sagutin o maraming sagot siya. Better we say, trees which shed their leaves annually are called blank. So, you are referring to a collective need of this type of trees that shed their leaves annually. Pero kung sabihin mo lang, trees which shed their leaves annually are, the student might put the different specific type of trees. But if you would asking a collective need of the specific trees, then you would be give one correct answer for this item. Remember that when you provide samples or example of this type of test, you really have to examine whether that item would be require one answer from the examinees or from the students. Number 5, we have to avoid grammatical clue to the correct response. Example, this is an undesirable example. A subatomic particle with a negative electric charge is called unblank. So meaning to say, the student would giving a clue that the answer should be start with a vowel because the use of an. As much as possible, we check our statement so that there would be no grammatical clue be provided to our statements. So better we put this way. A subatomic particle with a negative electric charge is called A, open close parenthesis, and blank, so that the student would not given a clue. Number 6, if possible, put the blank at the end of a statement rather than at the beginning. It is a mortal sin if we put a blank on the beginning of the unfinished sentence. So it makes sure we put it at the end or the last part of the statement. Example of undesirable. Blank is the measure of central tendency that is most affected by extremely high or low scores. So this is very undesirable. So better we put this way. The measure of central tendency that is most affected by extremely high or low scores is the blank. So better we put in the middle or we put in the end of the statement rather than at the beginning of the statement. Now let us move on to the essay or essay test items. Essay test item presenting a realistic task to the learners. Why do you think an essay test item are realistic? It's realistic because students give an opportunity to explain their opinion or even to explain how to understood the concept they ask of them. Meaning to say, it becomes realistic because the task would permit the student to demonstrate their own understanding about a certain concept or about a certain ideas. Now, essay test items are good for application, synthesis or summarizing, and evaluation levels. Please take note that synthesis and evaluation levels are even in application levels in the K to essay for under the higher order thinking skills. Now, there are types of essay tests. The first one is the extended response. In an extended response essay test, ito ay walang limit na answer. Pwedeng lagyan ng example or etc. This type of essay is usually used for synthesis and evaluation levels because Learners have a lot of freedom in answering the question because they given an opportunity to elaborate their answer. The other type of essay test is restricted response. This is more consistent scoring outlines parameters of responses. So there should be a limit to the responses of student. Extended response, that something could allow student to provide no matter how long the answer they put or they had to put. But restricted response have a limit on the answer of every student. So that are the difference between extended response and restricted response. That's all for this presentation. Again, this is Jaina Teyayama, BEd third year. Thank you for listening.